Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2024 Candidate Forum, hosted by the Castle Rock Chamber of Commerce and the Parker Chamber of Commerce. I'm Rob Osborne, Director of Business Development with Core Electric Cooperative. I serve on the Castle Rock Chamber's Government Interest Committee and as the Chair of the Board of Directors. I'm also a member of the Parker Chamber's Government Affairs Committee. We appreciate you joining us and look forward to getting to know more about the candidates and their priorities if elected this November. These events would not be possible without our sponsors, and we would like to express gratitude to the following sponsors: the Aloha Fund, the Douglas County Democrats, and the Douglas County Republicans. As a reminder, we are recording these proceedings today. The recording will be posted to the two chambers' social media accounts this week. The event is being live streamed and recorded for social media distribution. By agreeing to participate, each candidate has given their permission to be filmed for this event. This event will not be open to the public. It's only available for registered members of the two chambers who have reserved seats here today and are in attendance. There will not be an open question and answer section as part of this forum. All questions will be asked by me as the moderator, and candidates are seated by each district they are seeking to serve. Each candidate will be given the opportunity to make a 60-second opening statement. At the end of opening statements, each district pair will get two different questions, randomly choosing numbers that are before them to select their questions. We will alternate who goes first from each pair, and when your opponent is asked a question, you will each have up to 90 seconds to respond. All five candidates have been given 3 rebuttal cards, which may be used to weigh on any question that was addressed to a different pair of candidates. So, for example, if a pair from District 45 was asked a question about a state budget and a candidate from District 43 considers that a critical issue, they may use the rebuttal card to chime in after the two candidates from 45 completed their answers. Since you only have 3 rebuttal cards, choose wisely. When you're out of cards, you cannot add in to any additional comment. Rebuttals are limited to 60 seconds. All times will be strictly enforced. We will signal you when you have 15 seconds left, and we will ring the bell when your time is up. Unfortunately, I will have to interrupt you if you continue beyond your allotted time. Each candidate will be given a 90-second closing statement, and no rebuttals will be allowed during the opening or closing statements. So let's get started. At this time, each candidate has the opportunity for a 60-second introduction and opening remarks. I'd like to start with House District 43, Mr. Bob Marshall.
Right here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm Bob Marshall. I was born and raised in Colorado. Served 28 years in the Marine Corps, clerked for a federal circuit judge, did commercial litigation in Denver, and then worked for the Large Business International Litigation Division of the IRS after earning a tax LLM. I'm consistently one of the top 3 Democrats in the State House on business issues. Among many others, I've been endorsed by the Colorado Association of Realtors, the Colorado Family Physicians, and for the first time ever in my district, the Colorado Chamber of Commerce is not endorsing the Republican. My top 3 priorities are public safety, public education, and the environment, but since getting into the legislature, I've become a top expert on governance, good governance, veterans issues, and tax issues. In fact, the National Conference of State Legislatures invited me to be one of only 4 state legislators to present as a panelist at the conference this summer. I represent my district. I don't represent an ideology. I don't represent special interests, and I hope I can earn your support. To support me, go bobforcolorado.com. That's BOB, 4, Colorado.com. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Let's jump down to District 44, starting with Ms. Alyssa Nilemo.
My name is Alyssa Nilemo, and I am a 4th-generation Coloradan who is currently working in higher education. As about a 10-year board member now with the Asian Chamber of Commerce, I am grateful and very well aware of the labor that chambers do, small businesses and local economies, and how we all benefit from those. So I do want to just thank our hosts today and sponsors for all the work that they do in hosting this forum. I think it's so important that House District 44 have representation that's going to get work done a lot like chambers do. It's about the community to serve, not about partisan politics. Some of my focuses when I'm talking about that really are making sure public education here is fully funded, to address the condo defect legislation and start to heal our housing systems, and then also to support and uplift small businesses. And I look forward to a robust conversation today.
Thank you. Mr. Hartsook?
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Parker. Thank you for attending. My name is Anthony Hartsook. I'm the current representative here for House District 44. My background is varied. I've had 26 years in the military, multiple combat deployments. I did business development upon retirement. My wife is a surgeon. We have practices here in the Parker area. We've had kids that have graduated from the schools here. I understand from my military experience, my business experience, that we need to keep the state government out of the local business. Around here, and far too often, the supermajority sitting up the state house tries to dictate to municipalities and counties how they should do businesses. And that's not right. We fight that. We're the minority. And so that's what we look at doing. We advocate for a smaller government. I brought back the Parker Wine Walks, and I will continue to support small businesses here. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Hartsook. Coming down to House District 45, let's start with Mr. Max Brooks.
Thank you, Rob. And I'm not supposed to look over here. I'm supposed to look at the cameras, but I want to thank everybody who came out in person, but then everybody joining as well. I'd like to thank the chambers, both Castle Rock and Parker chambers. Very honored to carry the Colorado Chamber of Commerce endorsement. I grew up here in Lakewood, Colorado, and have been involved with local government for the last couple of years. I'm currently an elected official for Castle Rock Town Council. You know, you have a different kind of diverse group of folks that are there, obviously in much smaller number than what you have in the House. But being able to work in a pragmatic manner and being able to work as a solutions-forward person there, that grabbed the attention of Lisa Frizzell, who is the current 45 representative. She sat me down and asked me if I would please run for her seat, so then that way she would have the ability to run for Senate that's being vacated by our good Senator Smallwood. Max Brooks for Colorado. Look forward to today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Chad Cox?
Good afternoon. First, I want to start off by thanking the Castle Rock and Parker chambers for putting this forum on together for us. My name is Chad Cox. I'm running to be your next state representative for HD 45. As a father of 5 and service member, I know the importance of community and service. As an ER nurse of 15 years, I've seen the challenges that our families in the community face. As a community member of Castle Rock for over 13 years, I know what's important to the community, and it's what touches the actual community and not false narratives. My campaign believes in the idea that if we work collectively together, we can have positive change on the things that really matter to our community, such as strong education, retaining our environmental rights, especially our water, and maintaining a sense of community that builds each and every person. I want to see us a community that lifts each other up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Well, thank you all for your opening remarks. As we mentioned, we'll have 2 questions for each area. Each one of you will be asked to pick a number, and we will start with questions. First person in the district will be able to answer that question, followed by the second person. When your questions are answered, then anyone can use a rebuttal card to add to the conversation. So let's get started. Let's choose District 45. So I start with Mr. Brooks, so I'll go Mr. Cox. Mr. Cox, would you please select a question? 1 through 6.
Just say the number.
Thank you. Many Coloradans still face difficulties in accessing affordable health care. What legislative changes would you support to improve health care accessibility and affordability?
So thank you for the question. As a nurse, I really respect that question. I've seen too often the challenges, again, that families in our area face with receiving good medical care. A lot of it has to deal with the inadequate amount of physicians or primary care service that they can achieve. And so ultimately what that ends up happening is our community is driven to the ERs to receive their primary care services. And I think we all know, if you've been to the ER, how expensive that can be. And so we need to focus on a way to bring in our physicians, expanding the physician care into nurse practitioners, physician assistants to provide that primary care for our citizens so that they can maintain a healthy way of living, as opposed to waiting until the last minute to show up at the ER and receive not only great care, but then a very large, exorbitant bill at the end of the visit. And ultimately, they don't actually receive full answers. They get dealt with what their complaint is for that day and not what's ongoing in their life. We really need to be able to focus holistically on the care that they're getting from the top down, from the beginning of the illness to the end, and see it all the way through and make sure that they maintain services. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question. Mr. Brooks, many Coloradans still face difficulties in accessing affordable health care. What legislative changes would you support to improve health care accessibility and affordability?
Well, one of the reasons that I carry the endorsement of the Colorado Chamber is because I'm very anti-regulation. It's regulations, it's mandates that have been so extremely detrimental to the medical industry, to industries across Colorado. We used to be, very strong economically in a regional area, but now we've fallen behind. We've fallen behind with Arizona because of regulations and mandates that come from the supermajority in the House. We need to get away from that and be able to let doctors do what doctors want to do, and that is simply care for their patients. I'm proud to carry several endorsements that are numerous enough. I have to back up here and just make sure to mention the Colorado Medical Society, Colorado Hospital Association, Colorado Academy of Family Physicians, Healthier Colorado, and even the Colorado IDD Alliance. These organizations support me or have endorsed me in my campaign because they understand that I have the ability to be able to get in there and work on their behalf and ensure that the regulations are not killing healthcare, driving up the cost. All of the red tape that the physicians have to go through, it keeps them from being able to do what they want to do, and that is care for their patients. There also is an extreme disconnect in our pharmaceutical industry. There's a group that they're supposed to kind of try to press down the cost of pharmaceuticals. But instead, it's an oligarchy. They're the ones running it up because they get a percentage of it. That has to change as well. And there's action on that at the federal level.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. We have a rebuttal. Mr. Marshall, please.
I don't know if you can hear me, but a lot of this effort on saying, what's the state going to do about affordable health care? It gets very frustrating down in the Capitol and with a lot of candidates. 60 to 70% of every health care dollar in the United States is controlled or directly paid by the federal government between TRICARE, the VA, Medicare, Medicaid, FERS. Trying to do it at the state level and say we will fix it is a huge problem. I took a lot of heat of being one of the only Democrats to vote against the study to do a state-enforced one-payer system because several states have looked at it and said, no, it can only be done at the federal level because we could only adjust about 30% of the amount. The things we can do at the margins is try and get rid of these insurance mandates. Every time we put a mandate in and say the insurance companies must pay for that, it means everyone else must pay a little bit more to take care of that. The insurers must insure based on actuarial issues. We also need to look at the facility fees, and we've been doing that because a lot of companies are buying up these healthcare systems and buying up the small operators and tacking on fees because they can get them around, and people are getting hit by these thousands of dollars they don't expect.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Another rebuttal, Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. I appreciate everything that Mr. Marshall said in regards to insurances. I also appreciate what Mr. Brooks said in regards to regulations and keeping the government out of our healthcare system. I want to tack onto that what we're seeing nationally and could have potential direct effect more locally is abortion rights. And that's exactly what the government's doing, is impeding in on what doctors need to do to care for their patients. Abortion is so much more than black and white. It's actual health care that women need, they deserve, they should have the right to have when they come into an ER. And I would hate to see that any state regulations would impede any of my physicians that myself, nurses working with the doctors are faced up against in facing those kind of regulations made by state government. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other rebuttals? All right. We'll go to another district. I'd like to go back to District 43. Mr. Marshall, please select a number.
1.
Number 1, great. Thank you. Despite budgetary challenges looming in 2025, urgent issues like healthcare, education, infrastructure, public policy, housing, and other critical needs are among us. How would you prioritize state spending, and what trade-offs, spending cuts, would you support?
We're entering a very difficult budgetary environment coming up, and a lot of people don't understand we do have a balanced budget amendment in Colorado, and not only do we have a balanced budget amendment, we're the only state that has the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, TABOR. So not only do we have to have a balanced budget, we can't borrow to take care of issues, and we can't raise taxes or fees beyond a formula that's based on inflation and population growth. So it makes it very difficult when we have unmet needs to meet them. One issue too with TABOR that a lot of people, and I have defended TABOR from people trying to do an end run, because I'm a big believer in the rule of law, and we don't do end runs, especially around amendments, constitutional amendments. TABOR is as much of a constitutional amendment as the First Amendment or the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. But when we have a collapse in revenues, we have this ratchet down effect where revenues collapse, but then when they come back, we can't raise revenues because it's TABOR. And every time that's happened, we've had to go to the voters and ask for special dispensation. What I would prioritize, though, is public education and public safety. And I had some very difficult conversations with one member on the other side of the aisle who I took have a great affection for, who was on the Joint Budget Committee. Who told me I was trying to get some stuff through, and he's like, Bob, there's enough money. We just spend all our money on other little things, and then we don't have money for the big things. I thought he was just being an old curmudgeon, but there is some truth to that. And so we do need to prioritize first public safety and public education, and then the little things come next.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Are there any rebuttals? Yes, please. Ms. Nalima.
Great. And all you gentlemen are showing off, getting up and down and off these stools. I'm in a dress today, so you're stuck with me right here. A bit less of a rebuttal than to double down on what Rep is saying here. I also believe in investment in our public education and education in general. I think having a strong infrastructure where we are going to have real workforce preparedness and healthy communities, that is a strong investment that spreads out through everyone and is felt through that benefit. Also a big believer in local economies and small businesses, so whatever dollars I can help drive back to this community so that people here can make that investment in the communities. Activated, healthy, happy communities are also safe communities. So I see those investments really as sort of the tiers of which we hit those and we see benefit across the board.
Thank you, Ms. Nalima. Do we have any other rebuttals? All right, next question. Let's go to District 44. Starting with Mr. Hartsock. Which question would you like to be asked?
Let's go through number 4.
Number 4, wonderful. During the last legislative session, a bill was introduced that would require all counties with a population of 70,000 or more people to have 5 commissioners, with at least 3 of those commissioners being elected by the residents in the district from which each commissioner runs. What would be your stance if this bill was reintroduced in 2025, and why?
Thank you for the question. It's an interesting question because it brings to light the difference between state versus county municipality. I voted no on the bill, and I'll vote no again. If the people of the county want that, great. Let the people of the county vote. If we start having the state telling the counties this is how you're going to elect your officials, then that's up to you, because then it transcends everything. We have the state sticking their nose down into county, municipality business, telling them how to spend their money, whether it's on education, healthcare, roads, taxes. We constantly have the state, they passed a bill, the transit-oriented communities, trying to take money from the municipalities and counties if they didn't do the planning and building the way the states thought it should go. That's not the state's job. That job belongs to the county and the municipality. They're the closest to the people. The state should not be doing that. The same goes for just about everything else. If you execute it at the lowest level, down there where the rubber meets the road, and the municipalities and the counties have the closest pulse of the people, then that's what it should be doing. The state should be trying to fund that, send resources to help with that, And then the state should also be keeping the federal government trying to stick its nose down to telling people how to do their job at the state and sometimes even down here at the county municipal level. That's what the state should be doing. The state should be protecting the counties and municipalities, not telling them how to do business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartsook. Ms. Neelimo.
So
Do you want me to repeat the question for you?
I feel pretty good about it.
Okay.
So I cut my teeth in local governance. I started as an executive aide in a city council office. So you will always hear me say, I love local control and I believe in local control. You will also hear me say, though, I believe in transparency and good governance, and I believe that people are best represented with robust representation. And so I think as we grow, an expansion of the commissioners only makes sense. There are more voices to be heard. It brings balance and perspective to that. I'm also troubled when we have and see at any level of governance workarounds around open meetings. And I think what we see with the 3 commissioners is that folks can work around that and decisions can be made privately between 2 individuals. That is not what good governance is, and that's not what's transparent to the people. So if 5 commissioners brings better representation, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall's raised his rebuttal card. Then we'll go to Mr. Brooks.
This was my bill, so I could talk about 10 minutes on it, and I actually need about 10 minutes, because at-large local elections have a notorious history. They're used to keep down a political minority. It doesn't matter who the political minority is. Unfortunately, in American history, it was almost always a racial political minority. So for hundreds of years, leaving it to the county, leaving it to the people, meant they were locking out racial political minorities. Colorado flew under the radar in the 80s when the DOJ wiped them out throughout the United States because we didn't have a discrete racial minority being abused. These days, we do have people being abused by not having proper representation. 2 individuals, not 3, because you just need 2. In Jefferson County, 600,000 people, $1 billion budget can control everything. County commissioners are among the most powerful positions in Colorado because there's no checks and balances on them. Governor can't do anything he wants, but once the money gets down to the county, 2 people can lock out the 3rd and do anything they want. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And I was fighting down there on the floor when it got killed on seconds with the entire Black caucus and Latino caucus who knew what it was about, and all the whites were fighting me.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Mr. Brooks.
Easy answer is yeah, no, not at all. I really enjoy being an elected official chosen by my constituents to represent them at town council. Let local governments do their job. A lot of passion around this issue, obviously, but you know what? We ought to be putting that passion into things like budget instead. Protecting Tabor. Let local governments do what they are supposed to do, and that is represent their constituents. Let's be real honest right now, okay? This isn't about partisan politics, what I'm about to say. We have a horrible, horrible, devastatingly negative, impactful imbalance in the House. 46 to 19. 46 to 19. Government's not supposed to work that way. I swear to you right now that if it were 46 Republicans, 19 Democrats, I would stand here right now and I would say the same thing. It's broken. And you're pushing policy through because you can? No, that's not the way to go about it. Let local governments, trust them enough, let them do what they were elected to do.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. All right, new round of questions. Let's start with, we'll go with 45, District 45. Mr. Cox. Did you pick a number?
Sure, I'll do 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Mr. Brooks' turn to go first. My mistake. Mr. Brooks. What number would you like to select? 6, okay, thank you. There's always been a gap between the priorities of the urban interests and those of the rural areas of Colorado. We share some of the same urban priorities like transportation, housing, and density. We also share some of the rural priorities like local control, land use, and burdensome state mandates. How should Douglas County navigate the space between these competing constituencies?
Yeah, in many ways, this is going to go back to just what that last question was addressing, right? That we have a very diverse communities throughout the Front Range. The decisions cannot be made effectively at the state level thinking that there's some sort of one-size-fits-all, there's some sort of ideological Band-Aid that works all the way down throughout all of Colorado. You know, the repeal of the Gallagher Amendment was particularly impactful because that's what drove the property tax increase. Now, we can't have, it's unconstitutional, you can't have a Gallagher Amendment for one part of the state and a Gallagher for a different part of the state. It was particularly impactful to those rural areas, but it was devastatingly bad for all of the populated areas, as we saw with our property tax increase. It's yet another example of what happens when a one-size-fits-all approach is attempted. We need to be able to work on transportation and housing. 213 was a total disaster that was 2 sessions ago, that would have completely removed all local zoning control. That means that a developer could come in to the single-family home next door to you, knock it down and build a sixplex with no parking requirements. That's what that very short-sighted legislation was about, because that was the one-size-fits-all from the top down. That's not the way the things are supposed to work. Leave it up to the local areas, the local regional areas, to decide what's best for their area from transportation and housing. Those will be the solutions that will stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cox, same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
So I agree with Mr. Brooks that we do have a very diverse population. But what's funny is we're not led that way. We're led in a very monolithic way of thinking, and so it ends up leaving out a sect of our community that doesn't have a voice. And I have to say that we have a democracy for a reason and a constitution for a reason, and the democracy is to give majority rule. But the Constitution is meant to give protection to the minority that's left behind after majority rule. And so when we start talking about local control, what concerns me, coming from a person that grew up in a rural community, I may have different needs that the inner city people might have, but we have the same values, and we want the same things. We want our voices to be heard, we want our people to be successful, we want to feel welcomed and wanted into our communities, and without that, you have a disarray of people and you have disagreement amongst the government. The government should be supporting and representing the people. And when you have local control that is only supporting and representing a certain group of people, you do not have representation of a diverse community. And that shows in our housing population and the inability for people to live where they work, teach where they work, protect where they work. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any rebuttals? Yes, Ms. Nilimo.
So when I think about urban and rural, I think about the work I've done in Denver versus the fact that my roots come from the San Luis Valley, and the only reason we're not farmers today is because they did a buy and dry with my family's land. So I'm very aware of the tension between the two dynamics happening here in Douglas County, and I look at what Mr. Brooks has mentioned about the imbalance in the House a little differently. I look at as we have a very Denver Metro-centric legislator that, you're right, can push through things. And so I want to make sure that we have a strong voice that is actually asked to the table and can negotiate on behalf of Douglas County and House District 44 to make sure we are getting the things we need, because we are not Denver, we are not Boulder, and that is just a political measurement that has to happen in order to balance that.
Thank you. Any additional? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Hosek.
Thank you. And they talk about all the time at the Capitol, the urban-rural divide. There's countless laws that are passed by the Denver-Boulder community. One of them is the work week and the 40 hours. They mandated, so one size fits all. As a rancher who runs the milk farm out east said, milk cows do not operate on a 40-hour work week. They need milking 4 times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our caucus constantly fights the one-size-fits-all, I'm the state, I'm going to tell you how to do your business, whether it's healthcare, roads, schools, it doesn't matter. We are constantly being told where the state's trying to stick its nose into the county business. That's the county business to decide. And it's up to those people to elect those county officials, whether they always agree with them or not. That's their choice and their call. So that's what we push for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartsook. Any additional rebuttals? All right. We'll move to District 43. Mr. Marshall, please pick a number.
3.
Number 3, perfect. Douglas County has a highly regarded school district, but there are concerns about the funding and curriculum. What changes, if any, would you advocate for the state's education system, including funding and state mandates?
Yeah, when I moved here to Douglas County in 2004, we had one of the highest rated school districts in the state. It was consistently in the top 5. After my daughter graduated and was no longer a part of it in about 2009, I stopped paying attention. When I started paying attention again, we were dropped down into like 19 and 20. I was like, what the heck happened? We've been clawing our way back. But one thing I keep hearing a lot from, especially people on the other aisle, so, well, we got to get in there and renegotiate the School Funding Act. We reopen that and renegotiate, we can only lose, and I will make that clear. We will only lose. There is no appetite for Douglas County getting more money out of the state budget for education. Our colleagues look at us, we're the 6th to 8th richest county in the United States, and wonder why we don't fund our own schools while they're trying to fund the rural and other schools. So there is no appetite for that, and I was one of the only people to vote against the Speaker's own bill. It was her own bill because it was not appropriate for Douglas County. I was the only legislator in Douglas County that voted against it. And hopefully it looks like it will not have enough funding to trigger it. But I am one of the top, I'm endorsed by the Colorado Education Association, I'm endorsed by the American Federation of Teachers, and I'm endorsed by Corey Wise, the former superintendent. Very well-regarded individual. And Eliza Hamrick, and Lukens, who are probably the top 2 legislators in the entire state house on education issues, are huge supporters of mine. And I was there with them when there were only 10 people that voted against the Speaker's bill because that bill was bad for Cherry Creek and it was bad for Douglas County.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Mr. Brooks has a rebuttal.
Mr. Osborne, can you repeat the very last word in your question?
Yes. Last word?
Yes.
State mandates.
Oh, mandates.
2
There's
words,
that word again. So you know what happens with mandates, right? So I think that as a freshman representative, you get up to the House, you've got all these ideas, you say, oh, you know what, I want to get this done, I want to get this done, and then you're told, you know, there's a $900 million budget deficit. There's no money for anything. And so you come up with mandates, because the other word that goes with mandates is unfunded. Unfunded mandates means you pay for it. That should not be happening. Small government, local government, free market. If the school system is having a hard time, you know why the school system is also having a hard time? Because parental choice. There has been a very large, I have nothing against the Douglas County School District, but there has been a lot of loss of confidence there, right? People want home education. They want to be able to go to charter schools. They want to be able to seek out the education that they feel is right for their children. You shouldn't have to pay for it. They should make the choice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks. Additional rebuttal, Mr. Cox.
It's funny that we are talking about parents should have the choice. They do have the choice of where their kids go to school at. You can have homeschooling, you can have charter schools, you can have private schools, and we can have a really great public school system. What we can't have is people taking away funding for those that can't afford to go to those private schools, because then you take their choice away. You don't have a choice when you have to pocket several $1,000s a month for a private school education that isn't going to give you a broad insight of what the world is today. It's not going to be mandated, sure, but you're going to have a group of students that walk out into the world with a large, vast skill set of thinking and experiences that they meet that you wouldn't see otherwise that you get from a public school system. So why fight for something that we already have? It's in system, it's in place, keep it where it is, but let's keep funding and figure out a different way, a better way to fund it. Maybe it's reworking Tabor.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Yes, Ms. Limo.
All right, I actually will get off the stool for this one because this public education. I have worked in early childhood education, I work in higher education, and I will tell you, every time we underfund it, we are hurting ourselves, we are hurting our communities, we are not coming up with some better solution. And so I will just speak in support of the work Rep. Marshall has done and say we need more voices and votes up at the House saying Douglas County needs that money because we need to make an investment in our schools. This last year we had to close a school because we could not flush toilets in one of our buildings. That is absolutely unacceptable. We need to remain competitive by paying our teachers. We need to make sure infrastructure is there so that you can make choices about where you send your kids, absolutely, but there should be real choices. And so let's make sure Rep. Marshall is not up there fighting alone.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hartsock.
Thank you. I serve on the Education Committee. I also taught in the charter school after I retired from the military. And I taught, when I was in the military, not only the schoolhouse, but I tutored high school algebra to help kids. We've passed several bills, and I supported the bill that the speaker brought, along with our minority leader, because it's the first time we did finance reform in over 3 decades. In addition, we passed another piece of legislation that was workforce development. Are you graduating through school and either going on to an apprenticeship, a 2-year, 4-year, post-grad, whatever? Are you getting a job where you have an ROI and you can become contributing into society? Are you able to pay your bills, make your job? That's what we need to be developing. And I don't care if you go through neighborhood schools, which are both public and charter schools, private schools, home schools, it doesn't matter. If you go through that school, you get the education that you and your parents want you to get, and you can go on and become a productive person in society. That's what we need to achieve. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, we're down to the last question, so we'll go to House District 44. Ms. Limo, you are the person to speak first on this, so
I guess I'll pick number 5.
Okay, thank you for picking number 5 as well. Given warming trends, our arid climate, and water scarcity issues with water resources, what water resource management efforts would you support to ensure sustainability for future generations?
So water rights are complex, and we know that in this state, we are the headwaters for many places. And so the decisions we make about water are so important. What I will say is there's not a single entity that can solve or resolve this problem. And this is one of those where we have to work across all levels of governance and across all communities. Again, my family lost their farm because of buy and dry. Buy and dry does not work. We also know that building on aquifers and unrenewable water also does not work. So we need to be working across boundaries, across counties, to figure out what are our sustainable ability with water, what are efficiencies. I mean, it can be as simple as maybe we all really don't need Kentucky bluegrass all over the state of Colorado. So we need to be thinking about what supports our farmers, our agriculture, and then gets water to people that is green and renewable. And those would be my priorities at whatever level we are able to move that needle.
Thank you. Mr. Hartsock?
Thank you. You know, water's an interesting topic. Having been stationed overseas and been in a lot of very desert climates, and I was also stationed in Arizona, they've run kind of a 2-tier system down there where a lot of your parks and recs and grass is watered with reclaimed water. It's not potable, but it's reclaimed. And they save the potable water for drinking water. We do live in a semi-arid climate here. What we lack in this state is reservoirs. We lack the ability to hold and retain water. And because we always have some kind of environmental groups going, oh, you can't do this because of some squirrel or some owl. Yet people are suffering. Housing is tied directly to water. If you can't get the water, you can't build the homes. Then people can't move here, then prices go up. So it all needs to be coordinated and work together. But having seen where they've done it successfully in other states, they've done it overseas, it can be tackled here. But so far, you've had massive groups that have been in absolute tug of war, and we continue to see the prices of housing and everything go up. And until we get that to where people become the priority versus an animal, we're going to have a hard time building the reservoirs, getting more water retention, getting the ability to share water across multiple districts. When you look at the ranchers out there, if you want to eat, they need the water too. And so keeping them full of water is critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal? Yes, sir. Mr. Marshall.
In 2022, when I interviewed with the Colorado Association of Realtors, the interview was supposed to go 15 minutes. It wound up going 35 minutes because we were talking so much among each other. And when we got done, their chief lobbyist came up to me and said, you know, you are the first person and candidate we've talked to in 3 months who can talk about Colorado's water issues. That actually scared the hell out of me because I knew very little. I thought I knew very little. But talking about saying we need to build more reservoirs, the problem is the down basin people have water rights we have to fulfill. And we had a Centennial Water Forum that all the candidates and all the elected leaders were asked to go to. I went because it was a good thing to understand all the water issues out here in Douglas County and Elbert and Arapahoe County. My opponent, of course, didn't show up, even though he's the RWR water boy and getting all the money to try and take the San Luis Valley's water and have Douglas County pay for the infrastructure to bring it over here. And we will be paying it forever so people can buy the water in San Luis for $1.80 an acre foot and sell it for $7 here and make a fortune. That's not what I'll be doing.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Any other rebuttals? Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, again, a lot of these issues need to be solved on a regional or a municipal level. I have absolutely in full agreement with perhaps, Kentucky bluegrass isn't necessarily the best choice. Irrigation is where so much of our water goes. However, I don't want to see that decision made at the state. I believe that that's a decision that should be made at a local municipal level. I'll tell you this, Castle Rock Water is doing a fantastic job. District 45 that I'm seeking to represent at the House, it's Castle Rock basically. It's South Pradera and South Pinery. Castle Rock Water is doing a fantastic job. Not a lot of people realize this, but through the work of town council, town staff, and an amazing Mark Marlowe, amazing water director, we're going to be 100% renewable within the next couple of decades. 100% renewable. We did that in Castle Rock. Again, those solutions shouldn't be done at the state. They need to be incentivized to be solved on a local level.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Yes, sir, Mr. Hartsook.
Thanks. Just to reiterate a few things. We got Parker Water here. You've heard about Castle Rock. There's a lot of water districts that work together. Parker Water is working with districts up north to respect water rights of everybody. And yet, at the same time, it's amazing you can respect water rights and wow, you can build reservoirs because that's exactly what they're doing up there so they can retain more water so we can share it and get everybody to grow. It's not a one or the other, as has been stated. You can have both. You can keep your water rights, and you can build reservoirs, and you can build houses, because people are going to keep moving to Colorado. So if the option is to tell them no, which probably won't go too well, or figure out how to work with them and work within the water districts, that seems a much more congenial way to get about doing things. And that's what we have consistently worked at doing. Thank you so kindly.
Thank you. Any additional rebuttals? All right, well, thank you. Now each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for their closing remarks. I'll start with House District 43, Mr. Bob Marshall.
I've had a lot of people call me a weird unicorn down there in the Capitol, but I actually say it's a platypus because I'm not that good looking. We have, everyone talks about bipartisanship. 7 of my 8 bills last session got out of their committees unanimously. All the Republicans, all the Democrats voted for it. The only one that did not got out with bipartisan support, and it had bipartisan opposition because it was a very sensitive political bill. I work completely across the aisle. In fact, the GOP's own Liberty scorecard ranks me as the most moderate Democrat out of 69, and the person who keeps that scorecard not only said was I the most moderate Democrat ranked in this last legislative session in the last 2, but the most she had ever seen. I represent the district, not an ideology and not special interests, but I am very big about good governance, and my closest friends and colleagues down there are the progressives, and they do a lot of things for me without even doing formal amendments when I ask them because they know where I'm coming from. I'm not beholden to anyone, and they know that, and that's been very helpful to me when I ask them for something. They know it's not for some special interest. It's for my district. The good governance part has become a big part of what I'm down there for. Many of you may have heard about the Sunshine Law action, which I took up against the entire state house and leadership of both parties for stuff that had been going on down there. A former Senate Majority Leader GOP of the GOP said it was one of the most courageous things he'd ever seen. I brought the vacancy committee bill. It did not get through, but we haven't had a single person give up their seat so the party can appoint their own person in. I'll do what's right.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. We'll go to House District 44, Mr. Hartsook.
Thank you. One of the things that I have learned throughout my military career, business career, teaching, and now at the State House is that when things are so severely lopsided, it usually doesn't work well. Our government is a constitutional republic. It's representative. Right now, the Democrats control every single seat of power in the state government. The House, the Senate, the governorship, all of it. We are looking to bring balance. We are looking to bring common sense back there because one size does not fit all. One size doesn't dictate from the metro area down to rural communities or smaller communities or counties or municipalities. We fight to make sure that that one size doesn't get shoved down everyone else's throat because there are so many pieces of legislation, 705 from this last session alone, that were passed that businesses and municipalities are trying to react to and figure out, what does this mean? How does this impact me? From countless fees that increase inflation. From a business model, the state used to be ranked in the top 10, we're now down around 38. Our cost of inflation has gone up. Human trafficking is through the roof. Crime is going up. We need to start addressing these issues, and we need to start doing it through a balanced representative government. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nilimo.
My family is all too aware of the consequences of government overreach. In World War II, they were Japanese Americans living on the West Coast when the federal government decided they would intern people. And at that time, there was a courageous Republican leader, Ralph Carr, who said absolutely not and made Colorado my family's home. And that stopped his career, but it was about putting people before politics. And so we've talked a lot about fighting. I don't want to fight. I want to lead. I want to lead in a way where House District 44 gets the things they need. And I believe that we are positioned to do that, that we are a great place to live. Crime is down over the last 2 years. Business is good. We have a beautiful place to live. We're going to fight for public education. And so what I'm asking folks is, let's lean in to what makes our county beautiful and take a risk. Choose courageous leadership. Put people before politics. Stop fighting. Get the work done. And then the rest will handle itself. Thank you. Alyssa Nilamo.
Thank you. House District 45, Mr. Brooks.
Absolutely right. Bipartisanship and being able to work together for solutions. That's what it comes down to. This job is really not all that difficult, right? You go and you talk, you should be talking to your constituents because not every resident in District 45 has the ability to go to the Capitol and give their opinion. That's what I'm hired to do, right? I'm hired to take their concerns and the things that they are most concerned about and make sure that's represented. So it comes down to be very, very simple. We need solutions. We can't be in a political trench throwing grenades at each other that doesn't get anything done. I will tell you that what I'm hearing, public safety. People are concerned about public safety. You can say whatever phantom menace, but it's on people's minds. It's the #1 issue in this election, public safety. Can't get around it. Can't pretend, can't stick your head in the sand and pretend it's not an issue. The other thing is the economy. I just heard 2 words not too long ago that terrify me, really, truly terrify me. Reworking Tabor. Let's put that into 3 words. Steal your money. That's what reworking Tabor means. Steal your money. Proposition HH, overwhelmingly passed. Voters said stay out of Tabor. Yet, what are we doing? Continuing to take and take and take away from Tabor like it's some piggy bank. The economy is important. We need to protect that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cox.
Thanks. So again, I want to thank Parker and Castle Rock Chamber for holding this event. I think it's interesting that Mr. Brooks feels privileged enough to put words into my mouth. I did not say steal your money, nor would I. But when we have an issue that is continually taking away potential growth of our communities, growth in our public education, there is something that needs to be addressed there. So yes, rework it. We need to have a government that is cohesive and collaborative. And far too long in this district, it's been directive. We've been told what they're going to do. Government doesn't show up. We don't know that we're being represented. We don't know what voice is being said or lifted at the Capitol. I'm going to change that. I'm going to be the person that is open, transparent, comes to you, talks to you about actual local issues and not a false national narrative that is meant to divide us instead of bring us together as a community. I want to see our public school system stronger. I want to see an infrastructure that, or a growth that aligns with our current infrastructure. And I want to protect the entirety of HD 45. So yes, public safety is important, and we should focus on public safety, but we should do it locally and not on a false national narrative. We should bring everybody together, not divide. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to thank each of our candidates for joining us today. We appreciate learning more about your priorities if elected in November. Thank you again to our sponsors to making this event possible, the Aloha Fund, the Douglas County Democrats, the Douglas County Republicans. This has been a collaborative event with the Castle Rock Chamber of Commerce and the Parker Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome and good afternoon. Welcome to the 2024 Candidate Forum hosted by the Castle Rock Chamber of Commerce and the Parker Chamber of Commerce. I'm Rob Osborne, Director of Business Development with Core Electric Cooperative, and I serve on the Castle Rock Chamber's Board of Directors as their chairman, as well as their Government Affairs Committee and the Parker Chamber's Government Affairs Committee. We appreciate you joining us and look forward to getting to know more about the candidates that we have here today and their priorities if elected in November. These events would not be possible without our sponsors, and we'd like to express our appreciation to our sponsors, the Aloha Fund, the Douglas County Democrats, and the Douglas County Republicans. As a reminder, we are recording these proceedings today. The recording will be posted to the two chambers' social media accounts this week. This event is live streamed and recorded for social media distribution. And by participating today, each candidate has given permission to be filmed for this event. This event is not open to the public. Only registered members of the two chambers who have reserved a seat in advance have been admitted. There will not be any open question and answer sessions as part of this forum today. All questions will be asked by me, the moderator of this event. Candidates are seated by district for the office which they are running. Each candidate will be given the opportunity to make a 60-second opening statement. At the end of the opening statements, each candidate pair will get 2 direct questions, randomly choosing a number before them to answer the question. After the first candidate answers, the second candidate will have the opportunity to answer the same question. There are a series of rebuttal cards. Each candidate has 3 of these. Any candidate may seek to rebut after the first 2 candidates have spoken on the question. You each have 90 seconds to answer the questions. So if you wish to rebut, you would hold up your card and you would be given 60 seconds to make a rebuttal. Again, you only have 3, so use them wisely. Times will be strictly enforced. We'll signal you when you have 15 seconds left, and we'll ring the bell when time is up. Unfortunately, I will be forced to interrupt you if you continue beyond your allotted time. Each candidate will then be given a 90-second closing statement. No rebuttals will be allowed during opening or closing statements. So let's get started. At this time, each candidate will have 60 seconds to provide an introduction and opening remarks. I'd like to start with our Senate District 2 and offer the opportunity to Ms. Lisa Frizzell to present.
Thank you so much, Rob, and thank you to the chambers for putting this debate on. It is amazing that we have this forum available to us. My name is Lisa Frizzell. I'm running for Senate District 2. And I have deep, deep roots in Douglas County. I actually grew up here. My parents moved here in the early 70s, and I've seen Douglas County change. I've seen Castle Rock change from a place that had 1 stoplight, and for that matter, I believe Parker did it as well. And it's been quite an amazing time that we've experienced over the years. Prior to running for House District 45 to represent the citizens of Castle Rock in the State House of Representatives, I served 25 years in the Douglas County Assessor's Office, the last 8 as the elected assessor.
Thank you. Ms. Brady?
Hello. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. I really appreciate the chambers doing this. And I just want to say that I am Jennifer Brady, and I'm running to be your state senator because I feel that we can do so much more in this district than's getting done, because we simply need a change of leadership. People have walked into these offices and they are really reluctant to do anything, and we need some big changes going forward. And one of those changes would be being hooked up to the majority in the state, and that would be a good thing because you would have a senator who would actually be in the majority. And I would love to work with you all on a number of things. Another thing that I don't want to mention is that I have held a similar seat in Ohio. I won a state representative seat, and so I know how state government works. But the last most important thing is I ran in this race because of the political climate. It's just this hatred and division has to stop. A lot of people did not want to run, and I said, definitely, we can all run and have a discussion here.
Thank you,
And-
Ms. Brady.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving to District 2, Board of County Commissioners, Mr. George Teal.
All right, thanks, Rob. Hello, everyone. I'm George Teal. I'm one of your 3 Douglas County Commissioners from the 2nd District, which is really the southern part of the county, biggest municipality being Castle Rock. I served for 6.5 years on the Castle Rock Town Council before coming over, running for election in 20 and coming down the street to the county. Before that, I spent 20 years in the software industry. And before that, about 10 years in the United States Army, where I joined as a private and left as an officer. I've got 2 kids. Douglas County is the only home my children have ever really known. This is where we chose to settle after the Army in 1997 when I left, and this is where we've raised our family. And I look forward to representing you for another 4 years as your Douglas County Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Teal. Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate the opportunity from both the Castle Rock and Parker Chambers to host this forum. I'm very pleased to be here today. I'm Angela Thomas, and I chose to run for this office because I became tired of the dysfunction and chaos that reigns and has reigned for the last 3 years in the Douglas County Commission. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, I'm a former small business owner. I currently work for a small business owner, so I've signed both sides of the check. I'm a former social worker spending 20 years in the child welfare field. I can negotiate, I can be professional, I can work with people of all types to make Douglas County a better place for every person who resides here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And District 3 Board of County Commissioners, Mr. Josh Smith.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you to the Castle Rock Chamber and the Parker Chamber for having us and hosting this event. This is very nice, and I appreciate being here. I'm new to all of this. I got into politics because, probably like a lot of you guys, I'm pretty tired, like Jennifer said, of the partisanship and the vitriol and the anger. And I'm running based on community. I'm running on a restoration of community. I wanted to get into politics to try to get politics out of a lot of things. Democracy is a conversation, and that conversation is starting to have problems. We're starting to be running into issues just being able to talk about this stuff. And I don't like that. I think that's a problem. We all used to be bigger than our politics. And I think it's time that we get back to being bigger than our politics. So I don't care if you're Republican, I don't care if you're Democrat, I don't care if you're unaffiliated like a lot of the county happens to be right now. I'm just running on a return to normalcy. Let's get some things done, let's stop the theatrics, and let's be a community again. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Now on to the questions. We have 2 questions per race, and they'll be selected randomly by the candidates, 1 through 6. Each district or each race will have the ability to be asked 2 questions, and both candidates will have 90 seconds to answer the question that's directly before them. You may weigh in on a question directly asked to a different pair up to 3 times by using your rebuttal card, as we mentioned earlier, after the pair has completed their answers. Rebuttals are limited to 60 questions. So randomly starting, I'm going to start with District 2, Board of County Commissioners. And Ms. Thomas, you will go first. So please select a number of the question.
How about 5?
Number 5. That's great. The 2021 Marshall Fire clearly demonstrate that fire mitigation and firefighting is no longer simply a mountain issue. Windland-urban interface fires devastate entire communities, including their businesses. What should the state be doing, or what can the county do to address the ever-increasing risk of fire?
Thank you for that question. that is one platform that I am very concerned about, is fire mitigation. We are at risk of being the next Marshall Fire. I look at our ever-increasing density of development, our ever-increasing reliance upon our limited water sources, and I believe that we need to return to an idea that we must not just grow for the sake of growth, but we need to build that infrastructure to ensure that we are not the next Marshall Fire. I'm very concerned about the Pine Canyon development. I think that pumping off the aquifer is not a good plan. I believe that we have to ensure that we aren't putting a spa in the middle of a neighborhood in Roxborough that is already facing severe fire mitigation issues because there's just a couple ways in and out. And we add 400 more cars into that. That creates much more risk for that area. So I believe that we need to be focused better on our infrastructure and ensuring that we're looking at all those issues, including fire mitigation. And of course, supporting our fighters with good wages and support.
Thank you. Mr. Teal, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'll take it from here, Rob. Thanks. So first and foremost, I think it's very important that we continue the program. We spend about $1 million every year to have a firefighting helicopter here in the county and on call at any time. I know $1 million sounds like a lot, but compared to the damage, both in terms of dollar value and lives sustained, we think that's a good investment, and it's an investment that I think we're going to continue in the years to come. Secondly, we have, when we talk about the woodland-urban boundary, we have a plan underway right now for a $13 million, and it's called a shaded fuel break, where we thin the forest between our communities and the forest to return it more towards that ponderosa, healthy ponderosa pine forest that is in itself not susceptible to wildfire, but capable of withstanding wildfire. At the C9 Water Summit last week, the state unveiled its wildfire-ready communities, which involves the state spending money to come into communities that bound these wildfire risk areas so that we can go in and thin the forest and we can make it to where it could withstand a wildfire, keeping it a grass fire instead of these big crown fires that we know are so damaging.
Thank you. Do we have any who wish to rebut? All right. We'll go to the next district. Let's go to District 3, Mr. Smith.
Oh, let's try lucky number one.
Lucky number one. Wonderful.
Thanks.
Affordable housing is a pressing issue throughout Colorado. What policies would you advocate for to create solutions for workforce housing shortages in Douglas County and the state?
It's a good question, Rob. Thank you very much. Let's talk about housing in general for a minute first. I know Angela and I really plan on curbing some of the growth here in Douglas that's out of control, primarily through a stricter adherence to our water standards. Making sure the developers don't come in and try to, like Angela mentioned, pull from the aquifer at under 1/3 of the county standards. Why do we have standards when that happens? So in terms of the overall housing issue here in Douglas County, it is an issue. When we start looking at affordable housing, I've been in the mortgage industry for 18 years. There are a lot of programs out there, hard to access sometimes, but we can continue to promote them in the county. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Good Neighbor Next Door program. That actually allows first responders and firefighters and police, teachers I believe as well, to buy homes that are FHA repossessed homes, foreclosed homes. For if they stay there for 3 years, they get half off, which is, you know, on a $500,000 house, that's pretty insane here in Douglas County. And a $500,000 house is probably what we would call affordable housing right now in Douglas County, unfortunately. I think we need to continue to pursue more multi-home projects, more condominiums. And I do know that we need to, at the same time, seek federal and state assistance to be able to get grant money to help folks get into homes, because we do want our teachers and our nurses and our firefighters and our police and our first responders to be able to afford to live here.
Thank you. Any rebuttals or additional thoughts? Ms. Frizzell. Sorry, if you do have a rebuttal, please give your card to the gentleman. Please go
Thank
ahead.
you. I could talk about housing for hours, and I frequently do, so I'll try to keep it to 90 seconds. But it's really important that citizens understand that the Democrats and the state legislature have imposed significant policies on the citizens of Colorado that are actually making housing less affordable. So when we're talking about coming up with solutions to make housing more affordable, that does not look like rent control. That does not look like mandating renters or mandating what landlords do. It does not look like getting rid of credit and background checks. It does not look like a lot of the policies that have occurred, because those policies increase the risk for investors. Right now, we are seeing a lot of investors moving away from Colorado because this is not a place where they can make money. And that, let's face it, they're in it to make money. We have got to pursue policy that makes sense, that is balanced, and that works for everybody.
Thank you very much. Any additionals? Yes, Ms. Brady.
Thank you. This is a short rebuttal. I mean, I'm hearing what you're saying, Lisa.
Microphone.
Oh, I'm hearing what you're saying, but this is really a short rebuttal. It looks like we have plenty of builders around here to go around, so I don't exactly see them being scared off. I see them in every nook and cranny that I go to as I canvass all the neighborhoods in my district. There are builders everywhere. So we've scared off a few. I think there's still plenty that can, deal successfully. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And we'll go to the State Senate District 2 for the next question. I believe, Ms. Brady, why don't you choose, please?
Let's see, how about 2?
Question 2. Mental health issues are increasingly being recognized as a critical need in our communities. What should the state, county, and local municipalities do in the coming years to address the demand for mental health services?
Well, you've hit upon a very personal question in that if you go to my website, and I hope you all do, and it is namely bradyforcoloradosenate.com, you'll read that my father was completely disabled right about the time that I was 8 years old. And he became schizophrenic. He had a total break with reality. And mental health is, of course, very important and close to my heart. But one of the connections that people don't think about, well, they've been in our news lately, is those first responders, when the policemen come out. Democrats are often confused with being anti-police. Those policemen came to our rescue so many times, I can't tell you. And they have to be there as the first responder. So I'd like to see them with more resources. And I would like to see more understanding for the policemen in our community, that they show up into a very difficult situation and they might not be prepared for it, and basically the family is calling them in, or the person's behavior is calling them in. And it was our experience that they were very excellent and compassionate and always helped us out. That's just one tiny topic in the mental health crisis. Our young people are having a very hard time because a lot of things are stacked against them. That's a whole different topic. But a lot of these young people are resorting to things that we don't want them to resort to.
Thank you. Ms. Frizzell, would you like me to restate the question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Mental health, behavioral health is a huge problem in the state of Colorado, and the state of Colorado has literally thrown hundreds of millions of dollars towards this issue through the Behavioral Health Administration at the state. Unfortunately, we have not seen a return of those dollars down to the citizens quite yet, although I think we're all living in hope that that's going to happen. I want to give kudos to Douglas County government, who has really led the effort statewide in creating response teams that are able to have a clinician, they may have law enforcement, but it doesn't, when one of these teams responds to a mental health incident, they don't have to turn to law enforcement immediately. The individual can be treated at their own home or wherever they are and receive real help that they need. So there is a lot of layers to this onion. Another piece of it is we have healthcare deserts in the state of Colorado that are creating a lot of issues. If you are a person in rural Colorado and you're experiencing mental health problems, it is almost impossible for you to reach out and seek help. So that's something that we have been working on legislatively, trying to improve the situation in our rural areas, but it's an uphill battle and one that we need to continue to fight.
Thank you. Do any candidates have rebuttal or additional testimony they'd like to offer? Okay. Mr. Smith?
I cannot rebut her.
Oh, yes, you may.
Oh, can I?
Yeah, but Mr. Smith has already raised his card.
That's
Sorry.
okay. No, that's okay. That's okay.
Please go ahead.
I've been touched by this issue pretty personally a few times. A couple of years ago, I lost one of my best friends. And I think that we don't talk enough about not just mental health, but about isolation. I think mental health, whether it's the form of suicidality, whether it's the form of delusions, schizophrenia, whether it's in a form of just struggling with everyday life, or depression or mania, I think we've stigmatized it, and I think we're working to pull back from that a little bit. But I think, like so many other things, it's a byproduct of increased isolation and a decrease in community. I hate to keep bringing it back here, but I find so many things do circle back to the community. Addiction is certainly a sign of, or a symptom of isolation, and the answer to that is community. The answer to that is us reaching out to each other. Response with the police and the social workers, absolutely critical, but let's prevent it by reaching out to each other ahead of time.
Thank you. Ms. Brady?
Thank you. I don't want to get down in the weeds on this too much, but I kind of feel compelled to. First of all, mentally ill people are rarely violent. That's not usually how it plays out. But yet I have a concern for these teams that Lisa was mentioning, another type of first responder. I gotta say, my dad, it cut through everything for my dad when a police officer showed up. So if these other people who have better tools to handle the situation, I'd like to see them in tandem with a police officer. And I know the deadly force news stories go on, and I feel for those people. We were always lucky. We always had good outcomes with the police who were acting on their own. But if you have that other team, I would not want to see them out there basically undefended from anything that might happen. And so, we depend on our police, men and women.
Thank you. Continuing on, we'll start with District 2. I'm sorry, Mr. Teal. Yes, please, additional rebuttal.
Yeah, just to probably do a public service announcement. Really, I give a lot of credit to Commissioner Thomas, who's in the audience right now, for starting the community response teams, where you have clinicians that are paired with police officers, and we have this in every community here in Douglas County. And so that when you have a mental health crisis that is reported in, and it usually comes in on a 911 call, the immediate response doesn't have to be the judicial system, because you have that clinician who is paired with the police officer at the county level, but also here in Parker and in Castle Rock. You have that capability to have that clinical work being done without necessarily taking that person who's having a mental health crisis, not really a criminal issue, introduced into the criminal justice system. So I really think it's something that's being done right now. It's been done for years, and I think it's to the benefit of the people of Douglas County.
Thank you. So continue on with questions.
One more, Rob.
Oh, another rebuttal. I'm sorry.
We just keep giving
Keep
you
raising
rebuttals.
more ideas. But this is under.
I just
Thank
want
you,
to say
Thomas.
that the state of Colorado used to have thousands of beds for the mentally ill. And now we are down to less than 1,000 beds for folks who actually need inpatient treatment. And so I believe that not only do we need these response teams, which I give kudos to Commissioner Thomas for bringing those forth, because I believe that those are very critical to the success of interventions. But as an old social worker, I also know that sometimes inpatient treatment is necessary, first of all, to keep that person safe from themselves. And so we need to, as a state, develop additional resources for inpatient treatment for for people with mental illness.
Thank you. No additional rebuttals, so now. Thank you very much. So we'll move to District 2. Mr. Teal, please select a question.
How about number 6?
Number 6. Very good. Douglas County voters care deeply about public safety. Every store owner has concerns about the increases in theft. What are some actionable steps that you can take to make Douglas County and the state a safer place to live and own a business?
Well, first of all, as a county commissioner, we try to have a good relationship with our sheriff. That's easy right now. I think everyone on the board of county commissioners has a great relationship with Sheriff Darren Weekly, and it will be within the next several weeks that we actually will have the sheriff come in before the board to, I still use the business term, pitch his budget. And one of the key things to keeping this county safe that we do as commissioners is fund the sheriff. Now, it is a two-way street. There are always conversations that occur because obviously we also have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of Douglas County to make sure that money isn't wasted just because it's a great idea or just because it's the new in thing in law enforcement. This is something that I think we've been very successful at here in Douglas County. When Sheriff Weekly comes in, he is very focused on law enforcement on the street. And I appreciate having him as a great sheriff, because my standard is I look him in the eye and I ask, is this really necessary for public safety? Will these expenditures keep us more safe? And so far, so good. I'm probably a sucker when it comes to funding police. I do believe in safe streets and a safe community, and I think the first role that we can do as county commissioners is fund our sheriff's department properly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Teal. Ms. Thomas.
The Douglas County Sheriff's Department does an amazing job of keeping the people of Douglas County safe. And the evidence shows that crime is down in Douglas County versus going up. And so while I am completely understanding of the need for public safety, I think that all too often we get into a fear-mongering situation, and I feel like we need to become better at that in actually sharing the facts and not anecdotal evidence. You know, I work in a small business. At no time have we experienced theft in our small business. And that is not to say that it's not happening. But I think that what we have to look at is what is the real loss that's happening, and what can we do to help people who are feeling like they have no other option but to steal their diapers from Walmart. What kind of resources can we put together to help the people who are in those situations where they feel there's no other reason, no other avenue but theft? We have to really look at what the data shows us and what the evidence shows us to determine where we spend our dollars for the Sheriff's Department. And I, you know, as a former small business owner, I get it. I understand that theft is an issue, but we also have to look at the data.
Thank you. Ms. Frizzell, were you wanting to rebut?
Thank you. You know, U.S. News and World Report, I think it was reported that Colorado is the third most dangerous state in the United States. And so I don't find that to be anecdotal at all. There are statistics behind that, and they're FBI statistics. That's data from 2022. And maybe things have gotten a little bit better because we in the legislature did pass a law strengthening the charges for auto theft. And that was a good thing, and we have seen auto theft decline. However, here in Douglas County, we have folks coming down from Denver, from Aurora, and doing crimes down here, typically property crimes. To me, stiffer sentencing is really important. I am a huge advocate of Initiative 112, which is called Truth in Sentencing, that will require, for felonies, 85% of the sentence being served.
Thank you, Ms. Frizzell. Any others? Mr. Teal.
This might be a brief rebuttal too. Once you're sworn in as a member of the Board of County Commissioners, you know, we're subject to briefings from the sheriff. We get briefed on what is still in investigation, where the crime stats actually are, and I can assure everyone here, I can't share details from ongoing investigations that are really very much like what the state representative alluded to. I mean, these are organized crime rings that come into our community and they steal your car, like your car that you rely on every day. And this isn't anecdotal evidence. This is data. Our sheriff's department is chasing data right now, and these are complex investigations that we partner with the FBI on. I just wanted to dispel this idea that everything being done in public safety is based on anecdotal or rumors. It's not. It's based on data and based on real crimes occurring in our communities.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas.
I have looked at the data from the state regarding the crime rates in Douglas County. And I heard Mr. Teal say a couple weeks ago that the Venezuelans are invading Douglas County, but I'm not seeing the evidence of that. I understand that Mr. Layden told people that we have human sex trafficking that is rampant in Douglas County. However, my understanding from the sheriff is that that is not factual. So I think that while I understand that there is crime here, I think that we have to look at the real crime and make sure that our police are unbiased in their following up on those crimes. And so I support the police. My brother's a cop. I have many family members who are cops. So I do support the police, but I think we have to look at the underlying cause. And I also don't believe that stricter sentencing makes people avoid crime.
Thank you. Any additional rebuttals? All right. Let's move on to the next question. We'll go to Mr. Smith. Do you wish to pick a number?
3 or 4, 3 or 4. Let's go with 4.
All right.
It's a square.
What are your priorities for the county budget, and how do you plan to address concerns about rising property taxes for business owners?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Rob. You know, as I mentioned before, my top priorities for the county have to do with curbing growth and stricter adherence to our water rights and protecting our water. As far as the budget is concerned, I think one of the things we need to look at is trimming fat where it's unnecessary. I think we need to look at expenses that were unnecessary and not repeating those. I personally would like to see you know, additional funds and additional work put towards teachers, although I know that's not completely the purview of the county commission. But I do believe that these are that our schools and our school systems here are. I mean, that's why I moved here to Douglas County. I moved here 20 years ago when we started a family. Like George, Douglas County schools are all my kids have ever known. And I think we have a good school system. I think it can be better. I think it's very sad that my oldest daughter is 5 years ahead of my youngest, and none of her teachers were around by the time my youngest came through 5 years later. None of them. That's a tragedy, and that's a travesty here. And I think if we can invest in our public education and continue to invest in our safety here while keeping a strict adherence on water, property taxes are a very complicated issue. I'd like to see them come down, but it's about where that money's going as well. So I think we have to really look at both sides of that one. So thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal thoughts? No?
That was the boring question.
Thank you. All right. The last question that is scheduled, question number 3, will go to Senate District number 2. This time, Ms. Frizzell, you have the opportunity to answer first. How can we continue to support the opportunity for small businesses in Colorado and Douglas County, where economic development and aggressive commercial development and investment are driving up the costs of starting a small business?
Thank you, Rob. We deal with this question all the time because one of the chief issues in starting a business in Colorado and keeping a business open is we are over-regulating our business community. They are really suffering under whether it is fees, taxes. In Denver, you are responsible for repairs to the pavement in front of your building, even if you own it or not. I mean, you may be renting. And these are taxes that are overwhelming our business owners. One particular tax that I would love to see us let go of is the business personal property tax. And I'm actually working on a bill right now that is going to help our small business owners actually have a tax credit to recoup that portion of the business personal property tax that they are having to pay if they are a small business owner. We've got to stop regulating or over-regulating our business community, and I am very pleased to have been endorsed by the Colorado Chamber of Commerce for my work for the business community and trying to fight off some of these really onerous bills that we've seen come through in the last several sessions.
Thank you. Ms. Brady, would you like me to restate the question?
Sure.
Okay. How can we continue to support the opportunity for small businesses in Colorado and Douglas County, where economic development, aggressive commercial development, and investment are driving up the cost of starting a small business?
Thank you for that question, because I really think that this is the issue of this year's campaign at all levels. Affordability. General affordability is what is causing those problems that you're referencing, but also they're just at the heart of everything. It's a general feeling that everything is way too expensive, and it is. It sure feels to me like everything's way too expensive. And what is driving that, and you can see it so clearly in our district, in our county, is the lack of affordable housing. That is what's driving up all the other costs. We're finding that it's going on nationwide. Like right about the time that I was printing my particular piece of literature, I was just hearing that on a national level, and it includes affordable housing. And young people were talking to me about affordable housing here. And I then found it's at the national level, it's everywhere. Now, because there are business minds here in this room, I just want to say, you and I, we can easily afford our house. And many of us have maxed out our homes in order to make that investment in them. It's a good investment. But you've got to realize that that's not true for all people, and it's hurting consumer confidence. Those are your customers, and it's driving up every single bit of your expenses. And that's your bottom line when you're having those costs of business that are just being driven up by these bloated costs for everything.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Mr. Teal.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of go after the premise of the question, because I don't think that economic development activities are necessarily the root cause of driving up the cost for small businesses. You know, small businesses thrive when you have a rich, diverse market for them to present their services. Most of the small businesses here in Douglas County would not have been here 25 years ago when I first moved here. And it's not just the rooftops, it's not just the population, it would have been too small to support it, but most small businesses actually aren't retail. Most small businesses in America are business to business. They are serving other businesses, just like my own business that I ran for 11 years in the software industry. I was serving other businesses. And so I think economic development activities here in the county make more opportunities for small businesses. And then, Lisa, I'm really sorry to hear that you're trying to get rid of the business personal property tax, because that's my favorite credit to give out. I will give it out at the drop of a hat. If you own a business, come in, ask for a credit. I will be happy to give it to ensure your long-term sustainability.
Thank you, Mr. Teal. Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I'm going to get up. Sorry, this has been a little boring so far. I feel like we've all been kind of stale. And sorry, not all of us, just me. Small business is the lifeblood of this country. Small business is the jobs creators of this country. Forgive me for getting a little bit off of local for a minute. I'll get a little national on this. I think that small businesses deserve preferential tax treatment. I think that capital investment doesn't. I think making money in and of itself should be taxed less advantageously than labor. And I think that as we continue to incentivize small businesses, I'm all for, forgive me for going national, I'm all for her tax credit. I'm all for her giving $50,000 to help out small businesses start. And I think that we can continue to do stuff like that and emphasize supporting small businesses. And for me, it's also as simple as some local small business promotion through community again. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brady, you wish to speak again.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify. Thank you. I'm got to just say, I guess I was misunderstood in that I said that the problems, your question is asking like what can be done. I'm just saying that we need to understand it's coming from a general affordability, which is being fueled by the lack of affordable housing. That affordable housing is feeding into all the other affordability questions that people are feeling, the lack of consumer confidence, and also just the bottom line. Everything is bloated right now, inflated from that lack of affordable housing. Not George's answer or rebuttal was like saying that I was against. I'm not against economic development at all. And Josh, you seem to be sort of going down that road too. I'm just saying the lack of affordable housing in our district has to be addressed because it does fuel all the other affordability concerns. It's the basis. If we provide more affordable housing, that is going to be lifting, that will be a tide that will lift all boats.
Thank you very much.
You.
Does anyone else wish to join the conversation who still has a rebuttal card? Ms. Thomas, thank you.
Having been a small business owner myself, the Small Business Administration was an absolute lifesaver for me. Through the federal government, I was able to get guidance and help to get my business established. Through our local economic development committee, I was also able to secure funding and work to make that happen. My opponent, George Teal, indicated to me recently that we had too many coffee shops, we had too many of these kinds of businesses, and that you need to have $80,000 a year to live in Douglas County. We have to relook at that because small business is the driver of our economy in every way, shape, and form. And so whatever we can do to assist small business is critical to the success of Douglas County and every other county in the state.
Thank you. Ms. Frizzell?
Thank you, Rob. I'm going to finish this out. One thing that I want to mention, and this is speaking to property taxes, and it's an effort that I was incredibly proud to be part of, was the efforts to lower the non-residential assessment rates, which means that all businesses will see up to about 15% reduction in their property tax bill in the next couple of years. And that's huge for them because that is one of the biggest costs of doing business, especially in some areas of Douglas County, Arapahoe County, where we have high mill levies due to developer metropolitan districts. I agree. Small business is the lifeblood of this country. So let's get out of their way, stop regulating the heck out of them, and let them do what they do best.
Thank you. Well, that concludes with all the formal questions. I do have one follow-up question, which I would like all of you to provide a response to. Listening to the comments about affordable housing and the matters associated with government, there have always been a gap between the priorities of urban interests and rural interests here in Colorado, specifically Douglas County area. We share some of the same urban priorities with our other communities, like transportation, housing, and density, but we also share the rural priorities like local control, land use, and burdensome state mandates. How should you, in your role, either at the county level, if you're elected, or at the state level, navigate and lead legislation or policy to identify and support the space of these competing constituencies? So I'll start with Mr. Smith, and we'll just work our way down the line.
Sure. So rural versus urban. Sorry, I like to stand. They're both interests need to be balanced. I'm from Highlands Ranch. I'm from the almost Denver part of the county. We do see ourselves as a suburb. I understand that is not the same feeling that Castle Rock shares, or Franktown, and even Parker to some degree. Parker's got a very strong rural component to it, and I think both are important. I think we need to continue to support those interests that live in each area. And it's not always easy to balance, I think, because there are different interests. But at the end of the day, for me, I think it all kind of sums up, and I may have mentioned this in my opening, I may not have. But the idea that we keep putting these different constituencies against each other, I think is the biggest part of the problem. There is no us versus them. There's just us.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Well, the first thing I think about is the fact that I come from rural America. I grew up in a town of 110 people, and I hear people talk about Castle Rock being a small town, and I look around and go, oh, 110 people is a small town. But I do understand that rural and urban divide because I lived it. I've lived in the rural areas, I've lived in the urban areas. But the first thing that we have to take into account is representation. And I'm going to take my opportunity here to talk about moving Douglas County from 3 to 5 commissioners. We currently have a commission that rules this county with 2 people who can do all things they want behind closed doors, come out and announce it, and there's no transparency whatsoever. So in order to help heal that issue, we have to have a completely transparent government, and we need to move to 5 commissioners in Douglas County as soon as possible so we don't have this cabal creating all the policies in Douglas County.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Mr. Teal?
Well, I'm going to try to answer that question. But the way I've tried to do it these last 3.5 years is through our regulatory system and land use system here in the county. Ranchers want to ranch, farmers want to farm. Let's get out of their way so that they can do it. We amended our zoning resolution to allow folks in rural residential areas to kind of run their business from their homes, from their property. And you know, when you talk about the rural residential areas and the estate residential areas of the county, these are those shoulder areas. They may look rural, but chances are the folks who are earning a living there, they probably have jobs, 9-to-5 jobs that they commute to, but they still want to maintain that kind of rural way of life. And so I've been trying to get rid of the regulations that restrict that. We opened up the possibility for veterinarians to have large animal practices here in the county with very little regulation. That's kind of what I've been doing.
Thank you, Mr. Teal. Ms. Frizzell?
Thank you, Rob. I think that from a legislative standpoint, one of the answers to this is listening and respect. What I have experienced in the state legislature is, for example, we have 2 senators that represent the entire eastern part of Colorado. They call it Peltonia because they're distant cousins and they both have the same last name. They live and breathe their districts and making sure that they have the resources that they need. But the reality is we have a bunch of legislators who are primarily focused in urban areas of the state and are not responsive to our rural friends. The urban-rural divide in Colorado is real. It is real. And that is one of the reasons that exists is a lack of respect and a lack of listening. We have Denver and Boulder voters who decided that wolves should be unleashed on the rural areas of the state.
Thank you, Ms. Frizzell. I appreciate your answer. Ms. Brady.
Well, we had come across this in the earlier debate, and the rural-urban split can be bridged by just common values and serving all of our citizens well. So I think if we will finally make a priority on, again, affordable housing, when we find that we address that simply human need for all people, I think the benefits that we would reap would be considerable. Because I'm pretty religious, and I just think that that's the way it works. When we see to our brothers and sisters, then we'll all reap the benefits. So I don't think we have to be divided. I think we can find common ground in these values that need to be met. And affordable housing, expanding, passenger rail, those are two of my really core issues because those would serve both the rural and the urban communities well.
Thank you very much. Well, this concludes all the questions. I'd like to go to the closing remarks. We'll start with Senate District 2. Ms. Lisa Frizzell, will you please?
Thank you, Rob. You know, I've been out walking neighborhoods for the last several years, and I constantly hear concerns from both Republican and unaffiliated voters about the direction that our state is headed. There's a polling group called the Colorado Polling Institute that found that 58% of Colorado citizens no longer feel that they don't see Colorado as the Colorado that they once envisioned. They feel like strangers in their own state, which is, I think, a really, really unfortunate sentiment. We need to get back to balance. This election is critically important because we need to ask where we're going to go. What is really going to be the direction of our state? Are we going to impose limits on growth so that housing gets more expensive? Are we going to further legalize drugs? Are we going to let criminals run rampant? I would hope not. But this is the extreme legislature that we are currently faced with. The activist policies have not served the citizens of this state well. In fact, they've failed the citizens of the state. I'm running to keep balance in the state legislature. My website is lisaforco.com, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brady?
Well, I just have to take issue with such a negative evaluation of how our government is operating and how our state is doing, because I think our state is doing beautifully. If people are polled, I think in any regard, you could broach any subject and ask those first few questions about how do you feel? Do you feel connected? How do you think things are going? People feel alienated these days. It goes back to what Josh has said. We don't have enough of a sense of community. People don't feel that we're even having civil discourse in politics. We do need to respect each other. And I think that that will do a lot to improve that feeling. But also, I think that there are so much that can be done in this district that would also address not just the general alienation of people. People feel alienated. That's the worst thing about the human condition, is that people tend to feel that they're all alone. But we can do things to encourage not the general public, but also our younger people are falling very prey to a number of forces that act against them in this society. And I just think that my issues would do something to really, uplift and show that we can do things right here in our district with affordable housing, expanding passenger rail, getting gun violence out of schools, retaining and valuing our most precious teachers, and our water supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. District 2, Board of County Commissioners, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here today, our audience, and for all of you out in the internet land listening to us today. I'm running for Douglas County Commissioner because I want to see an end to dysfunction and chaos on our board. I want to see an end to lawsuits against one another on the board. I want to see a return to the decorum and professionalism that should be that of the Douglas County Commission. I am ready to bring ethical leadership, good governance, full transparency, and fiscal responsibility to the Douglas County Commission. We must make a change in Douglas County. We cannot any longer tolerate bullies who remove people from citizen boards because they don't agree with them. We have to hear all voices, and every voice is important. Thank you so much. Please visit my website, Angela Thomas, 4commissioner.com, and learn more about me. I hope I can count on your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Teal.
All right, well, thank you, Rob. Well, folks, again, I'll start like I started. I'm George Teal. I'm one of your 3 Douglas County Commissioners, and I would like to earn your vote. I would like to earn your vote and earn your support to continue in that role. I'm happy to hear to my right the focus on state issues. I'm disappointed to hear to my left not actually a focus on the real work that we actually do here as your Douglas County Board of County Commissioners. The county level of government is one of doing. It's not necessarily one of talking. It's not one of trying to solve the nation's problems, the world's problems. It's identifying the actual real problems that we do have here in Douglas County, which is ironic because we're a county that doesn't have a lot of problems other than those first world problems, where we're trying to take something wonderful, a wonderful, wonderful community that has been built up over the last century and a quarter, and make it even better. Make it that even better place to raise your family. Make it that better place to have a business, a place where you can live the life you want to live. And there are real solutions there. Some of them are really geeky tweaks to our regulatory system sometimes. But that's the work I'm willing to do. That's the work I've enjoyed doing. George for Dougco. George, F-O-R, Dougco.com. I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Teal. And Mr. Smith.
Thanks, Rob. And thanks again to the Parker Chamber. Thank you to the Castle Rock Chamber. Thanks to everybody watching, as Angela said, on this internet thingy. I've got my own issues with the internet thingy, and we can talk about that another time if you'd like to reach out. But I got into this, again, I got into this because I was angry. I got into this because we talked about mental health earlier. I got worried about my own mental health. And realized that the best thing to do, I took a little note, I think it was out of Obama's pages that said, if you're upset, do something. And so I went and talked to a friend of mine and I said, what can I do? I'm tired of everything that's going on. I haven't been in politics since I was a treasurer for my high school senior class. It was suggested that I run for county commission, and local government is the most often overlooked level of government. But I think George is right. I think this is the place where things get done. You do things. It's a lot less about speaking and a lot more about doing. To be honest, the deeper I got into this, the more I questioned whether or not I wanted the job. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of local work, but it's the most important work that we can do. And for me, I wanted to give back. I'm running to serve you. I'm running to bring us back together. I'm not running to serve myself. I'm not running to serve any other interests, any corporate interests, any of my backers. My biggest backers are my family. I'm here because I want to represent Douglas County and I want to represent everybody here. So thanks. Josh Smith for commish.org.
Well, thank you all for being here today. We appreciate learning more about you and your priorities if elected this November. Thank you again to our event sponsors, the Aloha Fund, the Douglas County Democrats, the Douglas County Republicans. This has been a collaborative event between the Castle Rock Chamber of Commerce and the Parker Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today.